apologetics must be a part of church discipleship.
That's why morality is relative in Americans throughout the West today, because man now determines truth.
And I believe that that's why the nation is in the state it's in, because they don't know the Word of God, and because the church has failed, in a sense, to hold forth the Word of God in the midst of a crooked and perverse generation.
Welcome to Heritage of Truth. Today our guest is Dee Ann Turner. Welcome, Dee Ann.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Now, you work for Chick-Fil-A. Can you tell us what your title is?
Well, currently my role at Chick-Fil-A, I am Vice President of Enterprise Social Responsibility. So I'm leading our environmental and sustainability initiatives. And previous to that, for 30 years, I worked in the field of human resources, or talent, as we like to call it at Chick-Fil-A, and I led that part of the business for about 20 years.
Wow. And that's, I guess, the fodder you had for writing your book.
Yes,
My
absolutely.
pleasure.
That comes from all the years that I spent working with Truett Cathy, our founder, and he taught me so many great people principles, and I wanted to be sure that we didn't forget what he taught us, and that the people that came after us would know exactly what he taught, which was basically this: we're not in the chicken business, we're in the people business.
And he was a good Christian man, wasn't he?
Truett he was a Christian, and he founded his business on biblical principles, and which for him meant a lot of things, but one in particular is he grew up with the whole idea of the golden rule, and he used to call it the golden rule and then some, which was not just treat others as you'd want to be treated, but treat others as they would want to be treated.
Yeah, that's good. Well, why did you write this book?
It started out sort of writing some blog post about my experiences, and my father and Mr. Cathy passed away within about 12 months of each other, and both of them had been my greatest business mentors, and so it was really kind of working out my grief, if you will, and so I started writing these stories. In fact, half of that book was written in a one-week time period where I was just pouring my heart out about what I had learned, and I think there's such significant principles. Obviously, being with Chick-Fil-A almost 31 years now, had an incredible impact on my life, and I wanted to be sure that it got passed on somehow, so that's what caused me to write the book.
Kind of like a heritage you inherited that you're leaving as a legacy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, as you know, our website, our ministry is all about passing on the heritage of biblical faith, biblical truth, and helping people understand what that is. And this is a little bit of a departure for us, talking about business, but there are a lot of people out there, believers, who are in business or who own businesses. And how would you advise them, based on everything you learned from Mr. Cathy and from your work at Chick-Fil-A, how would you advise them to take their faith into the marketplace?
Well, I think that just being who you are, one of the things that I did learn from Mr. Cathy is that he didn't have a pulpit. He was a Christian, but he wanted to be someone who, in fact, one of our hospitality principles is to treat everyone with honor, dignity, and respect. And so the way he did that was simply to walk the walk. And he wouldn't be one to preach his beliefs, but he was one to live his beliefs. And so he set examples of integrity, and in his he did what he said he would do, and excellence in all the work that he did. And of course, one of the things that he's known most for is how generous that he has. So those qualities really demonstrated faith. And it was by the doing, as Bob Goff says, love does, versus the saying. And I think that's how
Book of James says that too.
Yeah, that's true. That's exactly right.
That's good. Well, how did you choose and then train your employees? Like what are the principles you learned about doing that people can apply to their own businesses?
I think of all the most important decisions that we make at Chick-fil-A, it's who we give the keys to the restaurant to. So we use the term franchisee and operator interchangeably. And Chick-fil-A is a family-owned business, and I think of our restaurants as all little family-owned businesses. And so as that was one of the things that I focused on and did for many, many years, was select this person who we would give the keys to. And we looked for people with a strong leadership track record, somebody who would engage both team members, many of whom are teenagers, obviously, and also engage their guests. and had a real heart for service. Those are the people that we look for. The training part, really, then if we got the right person, then they did a great job at training restaurant team members, which are so famous and for us, and who've created that great track record of customer service excellence. Talking about families, one of the most interesting questions that I would ask myself in making a decision about selecting an operator would be, at the end of the interview, and I knew all this, sometimes I would ask the candidate, I would say, why would I want my 3 children to work for you? Because if I wouldn't want my 3 children to work for this operator, why would anybody else want to? And that's really the way I took that decision, is selecting people I would want my own children to work for.
Now, I saw something about where you were talking about how it's so important for people to find the right purpose. And if someone is promoting somebody into a position that isn't right for them, they're actually stealing their future.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
I think about that a lot when we are in the midst of selecting somebody for a role. And the story that you're referring to that comes out of It's My Pleasure, one of my staff members had come in and she was telling me about this great candidate that she thought was a great fit for this particular role. But she said, this isn't going to lead to fulfill her future goals. And I said, do you want to steal her life? That's what I actually said. They made me soften it when they edited the book. I said, you want to steal her life? And she looked at me and said, that's what we're doing when we, even though it would be good for us, it has to be a long-lasting relationship. To have the kind of retention rates we have, it has to be good for the candidate as well. So we joke about another one of the things that I do in corporate positions and with franchisees, I would always try to talk the candidate out of the job. Really? After all that interviewing. Now, why would I do that? It's because if the person could be talked out of it on the day we're making a job offer, then that would be so much better than 6 months down the road when they decide it really wasn't the right job and maybe they've relocated their family or they've quit another promising career to join us. And we want to have long-lasting relationships. That's one of our guiding principles. So to do that, we both have to make a really good decision from the beginning.
That's a really good thing to do. Now, is there a way to apply the principles you've learned within a family?
Absolutely. And one of the things, the book starts talking about how to create a compelling culture. And I actually had a really good friend who's a stay-at-home mom. And she read my book and she said, we're starting on this tonight. And basically that section of the book in particular, what it talks about is the key elements of a compelling culture. And you have to work on that for your family just like you do a business. And so the first one that is finding out what your purpose is. As an organization, we want to know why we're in business at all. And of course, I know you know that Chick-Fil-A is well known for that purpose, that we are in business to glorify God by being a faithful steward of all that's entrusted to us and a positive influence on all who come in contact with Chick-Fil-A. So as a family, just deciding, hey, what are we here for? What is our ultimate goal as a family? What heritage or legacy do we want to leave behind? And be very intentional to working towards that. And then having a mission. At Chick-fil-A, our mission has changed. When we achieve all the goals for that mission, we change it. So at one time, it was to be America's best quick service restaurant at satisfying every customer. A few years ago, we attained that by all the rankings and so forth. So we made our mission something really simple: be remarkable. Be remarkable in the food that we serve, in the service that we provide, and in the experiences that we create. And of course, the same is true for a family as well. You and I were talking a little bit right before we started this segment about our family does work in Kenya. And so we really have a mission around serving and giving to others, and we dedicate our time, talent, and treasure in all of those areas as a family. And so having a mission, having something that you're about that's bigger than yourself, I think is a very unifying quality that brings your family together, and certainly when Christ is in the center of that, how powerful that is.
I think it would also help the children to not be so self-centered.
Yes. Well, there was nothing quite like taking my teenage children to Kenya, and when they came home, definitely a very different perspective and appreciation for what they have. The third element of a compelling culture is values. And so at Chick-fil-A, they're excellence, integrity, generosity, and loyalty. But a family can create that too. What's most important to this family? What are we going to make all of our decisions by? What is the filter we use for how we communicate to one another. And then lastly, having some guiding principles. And at Chick-Fil-A, they were things like being closed on Sunday, or treating every guest with honor, dignity, and respect, or making long-term decisions so you'd have long-lasting relationships. And a family can do those things too, you know, all for one, one for all type of thing, and have their own guiding principles. So I think that that work is very, very applicable to the family environment.
Is your life changing at all now that you've written this book?
Well, I'm certainly busier than I've ever been before, but you know, this was something that I'd wanted to do all my life, and I feel very blessed that I had the opportunity to do it, and that God made a way for that to happen, because I do believe everything is His plan, and He made a way for that to happen. Changing, it feels really good to check something off your bucket list, but then the question becomes, what do you do next?
Have you thought about writing again?
I would love to write again, and at some point in my life, possibly when my business career is over, I'd love to focus on faith-based writing. That's really where my heart is.
So you mentioned your children. How many do you have?
I have 3. The oldest is 26, and he's married, Trenton, and he's married to Katie. And I'm fortunate my kids right now all live near me. They live near me in Atlanta. And then our middle son just graduated from college, so he's literally, today is his last day in our home. He's moving out. Ooh. And then my youngest is 17. He'll be a junior in high school this coming year.
Yeah, so you have all sons?
All boys, yes.
Yeah, okay.
And a wonderful daughter-in-law. I call her my daughter-in-law.
Oh, that's good. Have you been able to translate the principles you've learned in your business to your child rearing?
Absolutely. In fact, there's I talk about, there's several stories that come up with the children. What they would say that I had transferred and what I've actually, maybe 2 different things. But, you know, I think about one of the things is how we select talent. And we start with character. We say character first. And Truett said that. He said, you can teach anybody to make a chicken sandwich. You cannot teach them character necessarily. That's a hard thing once certain things are ingrained. And so I've really worked with that with my sons over time. And character has always been a big focus of what I've tried to raise them. And then just this whole idea that we're put here for a reason, you know, and I think that when Truett Cathy founded Chick-Fil-A in 1946, or he founded his first restaurant, rather, the Dwarf Grill, I'm sure he had no idea that his impact would literally reach countries he never saw or ever heard of, and who never heard of him. We are but a vapor. And so to have an opportunity to focus on what our lives could be and being sure we're maximizing all the talent that God gave us for His glory, I think is a pretty significant calling.
Yeah. Well, you also work with Lisa Turkhurst, is that correct?
I have. I've been on Lisa's board. What a wonderful experience it's been serving Lisa and the Proverbs 31 family. You talk about a group that's doing amazing work all over the world. I think 120 some odd countries are enrolled in her online Bible studies alone.
So has Bible study been a big part of your life?
You know, it has. And one of the things that I remember is my mother, when I was just a little girl, she led Bible studies and had Bible studies in our home, and had a particular person that they listened to that I'm not all that familiar with, but what I am familiar with is they had this reel-to-reel recorder, if you remember those, with the tape, and that's how they listened to Bible studies, you know. And now you think about us, you know, watching it online or whatever, but it was the great big old reel-to-reel recorder, and I can remember those ladies sitting around our living room listening to that and all the things I picked up from that. But huge part of my life, and I usually remain in a study all the time, either personal or with others.
For women who are in a career like you are and are raising their children, do you have any advice you want to give them?
I have a bunch of advice about that. So the first thing is, and I didn't know this from, you know, I learned all this along the way, nothing that I can think of I knew from the beginning, but the first thing is that you have to get yourself grounded before you do anything else. And so, you know, all my life, or all my married life with children, I'm up before anyone else. It's dark, it's quiet, and I have to have my time with the Lord, and I have to get focused for my day. It's not going to be my time to do that any other time of day, but that focus helps me be a better parent, helps me be a better leader, helps me be better at all the roles that I have. The other thing is that, you know, we can't walk through life with regret. I believe God gave me a calling to do what I'm doing, and I never saw myself as that. I used to joke and say I was the accidental vice president. We didn't go into all this, but my husband, the first part of our marriage, he was a pastor, and he was in full-time ministry. And so when I went to work for Chick-Fil-A, I thought, well, I'll be here a few years, and then I'm gonna be the preacher's wife, and I'm gonna be at home. And in fact, at a time, because I had gone to college with the idea that I would go into full-time Christian service, for a little while, I felt like I had missed my calling, like I had not done what I thought God intended for me. And then it was one day I realized, well, my calling was to help other people find their calling.
Oh.
And so when that then became really my mission at work, it's like I'm helping people find their life's work, and they're getting to fulfill their passions and dreams by what I'm helping them to do. So all that's to say is that we can't have regrets. We can't look back and go, if I just spent more time and done this. Sometimes I tell young mothers, I said, you have to, guilt is a waste of time, and it's of Satan, by the way, too. So so instead of feeling that, sometimes you have to give your permission to say, you know what, I've done the best I can do. I'm not perfect. My kids got so much out of my career at Chick-Fil-A. They are all, I'm so proud of all of them. Their work ethic is amazing. And they were never ones to miss school because they saw mom get up and go to work every day. So I think they've gained that, and the influence of the amazing Chick-fil-A staff members and operators that they've had a chance to meet and be around over the years. Because we are a family company, family's very welcome in our environment, and I've taken all of my boys on business trips with me, and they know the people that I work with, and other than their dad, I have to say there's some tremendous role models at Chick-fil-A that I'd want my sons to be just like.
That's great. Well, where can people find out more about your book and find more about you?
I have a website. It's deeannturner.com.
Okay.
And then you can also find me on Twitter at Dee Ann Turner, and also on Instagram. It's my .pleasure, very important dot. It's my .pleasure is my Instagram, and so those are, and I have a Facebook author page, Jeanne Turner. So find me in all of those places, and the book is available on deeannturner.com and other retailers.
Great. Thank you. Well, it has been my pleasure to have you on our show, so thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been my pleasure, Jeanne. I've enjoyed it very much.
I know whom I have believed, and am persuaded that he is able to keep that which I've committed unto